If you ever find yourself doing food delivery here in Kailua and you get sent to Man vs. Fries and you get confused, just know it's California Pizza Kitchen. It's like a ghost kitchen that they have set up. It's the same location. It's the same food. It may be a different menu. But the first time I was sent here, I was like, where the hell is Man vs. Fries? Like, I walked around this place like a donkey for like 10 minutes. I finally went in. I was like, hey, do you guys know where it is? They're like, yeah, you're here. And I was like, well, that'd be nice to know. All right, guys, so there's something I want to talk about today, and it's pretty sad. I've seen on the news that we've recently had back-to-back fatalities. For, I think the first person was a 20-year-old woman on a moped. I could be wrong. And then right after that, something like a 14-year-old on a dirt bike. Both were in collisions. Both lost their life tragically here in Hawaii. The 14-year-old, to my understanding, was in a crosswalk, illegally crossing a crosswalk when he had the red hand, and a driver plowed into him. That's at least what I read in the article. And I'm not sure what happened with the young lady, but it's just so sad because it's just back to back, and we have a real issue here. And I think a lot of places do, but there's a lot of, and this is more for the 14-year-old boy, but there's a lot of kids who ride around without helmets, without protection, and probably the most concerning thing is without the experience, without the road safety course, or, I took a motorcycle safety course when I was 16, and these are kids who are riding bikes that aren't outfitted for those streets. And not only that, but they're like stunting, popping wheelies, and they're out at night. And this is just like a global observation, so it's not every kid, of course, but I see these little like gangs of kids, and they're riding around, and they take up both lanes, oncoming traffic as well. There's no lights, no high-vis anything, no nothing, no safety precaution. You're young. Like, a lot of kids think that way. I thought, like, I was a kid once, believe it or not. And I think that they did pass a law, but, the laws are only as good as the enforcement of said laws. And so I think right now, I think that tragically we're going to see more and more death until just something happens. Something needs to change, because it's these cars and team, they're not just on bikes, these kids. It's not like when we were a kid and you're on a BMX bike, like mobbing to your friend's house. They're on like fast 750 watt e-bikes, motorbikes, dirt bikes, electric dirt bikes. It's no joke. These kids are out there, and they're really, they're maintaining speed with traffic, but they don't have, turn signals or brake lights or headlights or any of that stuff. And I think it's just, it's clearly a recipe for disaster. And so, that kid, that's what it was. The 14-year-old kid who lost his life today is not the first and won't be the last until something changes. But it breaks my heart, because I'm a dad. I got 3 young kids. There's no way in hell I would let any of them on one of those. I would do it the way my parents did it. And that's like, if you really want a motorcycle, you can get a motorcycle. And even that, I'm like, I don't know. But it had to be a legal bike. I had to take a motorcycle safety course. And then I was on like daytime use only for a long time. But a lot of that was because my dad was a rider, and even then I almost crashed a number of times. And I did a lot of stupid stuff on that bike too. So I don't know. I think it's a real shame. And I think it's one of those situations where technology outpaces laws. And whenever technology outpaces laws, because laws are archaic and drafting laws take time, whenever technology outpaces laws, you have this kind of gray area that extends for far too long, and that's where a lot of death and damage occurs. So I think that's what we're in now. I think they're just now starting to change the laws, but then you need enforcement, and then the police will say, well, we don't. There's only so many of us, and also, I learned an expensive mistake today. There's a reason why this jacket says to line dry only. I put it in the dryer and it shrunk about 3 inches on me. So let it be known, I love my Beyond Riders jacket, but definitely don't dry it. I was intending to run it for a little bit just to get it started and then line dry it the rest of the way. And I just got, story of my life, I got sidetracked, forgot. And then I went out today and tried it on, and I was like, man, did I put on weight? I did put on weight, but I also shrunk the jacket. If you're new to riding, it's worth noting too, when you brake, you're gonna have a front brake and you're gonna have a rear brake. And most of your, pop quiz, where do you apply most of your stopping power? Well, it's gonna be the front. I think it's like 70% of your stopping power or something. That's an arbitrary percentage, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not far off. There are times where you can jam both on, but if your bike doesn't have ABS, that leads to another host of issues. So you can skid, you can do all that stuff. So definitely be mindful of your front and your rear brake and brake accordingly. There are times where you can apply both of them, but just, you release one before the other. You don't want to fly over the handlebars. You don't want to skid out with the back. So you just be careful. You'll see that I don't brake both hands at the same time. And a lot of you watching this will probably be like, yeah, duh. But I mean, there's someone out there that probably just learned something new today, because there was a time where I didn't know that. I also, when possible, try and see through the windows of the cars ahead, because the latency, being able to see what's coming up ahead, can make all the world of difference versus watching just the brake lights in front of you. Let's see, what else? Where do you ride in your lane? That's important. I remember when I was a kid, I would see a motorcycle and they would be kind of hugging the stripe. And I'd ask my dad, I said, why is that motorcycle on one side? And he was like, well, son, look at the center of the road. And you could see a notable difference from all the oil that has collected over the years. And it makes it the asphalt slightly slippier in the center. Unfortunately, here in Hawaii, our roads are so terrible that if you kind of hug any stripe, you 10 times increase your chance of hitting a pothole, because where do potholes generally occur? Not in the center of the lane, but where the tires are slamming. So I do find myself, I tend to ride more in the center, and I think I'd take a slicker road than one filled with death traps. All right, so what other knowledge can I drop on you? Let's see. I would say knowing your bike is really important. Knowing how your bike handles, that takes experience and time in the saddle. And so it's counterintuitive, but really one of the best ways to increase your safety as a rider is to get out and ride more, and you learn your bike and you figure your bike out and you get used to it. And bikes come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and different bikes have, clearly, obviously, the first thing, you're going to have different motors, you're going to have all sorts of stuff, different handling, and learning your bike learning your turning radius, how it handles, all of that sort of stuff comes into play. And it will become, the idea is that you ride it enough that if you ever need to perform an evasive maneuver, you're able to, and you're able to safely. The other thing is, if you really want to increase your odds of survival in a crash, you need to be dressed for the crash. There's an old saying, dress for the slide, not the ride. And that's basically like a proper helmet, strapped on your head correctly, proper gear. You know, in my case, I have motorcycle. I've got riding gloves, I got a riding jacket, and I have a helmet. I don't have pads. They do make jackets that come with pads. They even have jackets that come with airbags. I saw that and I was like, damn, that's so cool. And I guess there's two different ways that they work. One is a GPS. One is somehow it works with GPS and it tracks like G-force. And then the other is a tether. So if you get knocked off your bike, kind of like if you're on a jet ski, like a kill switch, it deploys the airbag. So definitely having the right riding gear. And you know, there's things I can do to be better myself. I don't have riding boots. I am wearing jeans, but I'm not wearing riding pants. So, you know, it's things that you invest into your safety over time. And it's something in the back of my mind. I do want to eventually get like a nice pair of riding pants. Now I need to upgrade and replace my jacket since I shrunk it and it's a little tight. It's kind of uncomfortable. If you have a full face helmet, great. If you have a modular helmet like what I have, great. Something like 34% of all impacts in a motorcycle crash to the head occur on the chin bar, and so open faces are decent. People like them, I think, because of the look. But there's a big trade-off when you're riding with an open face. And if you do ride with an open face helmet, definitely have some sort of adequate eye protection. I get hit in the face with bugs and bees and rocks and all sorts of stuff every single time I take the bike out riding. Every single time, it's without fail. And so the last thing you want to do is just be like, well, I'm riding slow. And you know, it's crazy because I see it so often. I see it because there's so many tourists. These guys will be riding around on rented mopeds. Sometimes like girls just in bikinis or dudes in board shorts and slippers, and just it's terrible. And I get it too. It's Hawaii. It can be super hot. And there's a lot of times where it's really uncomfortable. And the last thing I want to do is slip into jeans on a hot day. But, you know, like they say, like I said, the saying is dress for the slide, not the ride. Something else, just like with any vehicle, you want to make sure that you have your wits about you. And I'm talking specifically about being present in your mind, and so that means being sober from all mind and mood altering substances. Even right now, me coming out and door dashing when I had kind of bad allergies and I feel weathered and drained, it's not ideal. And looking at the weather, it looks like the day might be called for me anyway. But you really want to go out, like I have a crook in my neck. That sort of stuff is, you know, it might seem manini, but it really makes turning my head to do a shoulder check difficult. I'm still going to do it, but I can see a lot of people being like, oh man, I'm not going to worry about that. So bear in mind that, you know, your body is a tool. You are one with the bike, not to get all woo woo on you, but it's just like, you know, just take into consideration, you don't have the same protection of a 3000 vehicle. You don't have a frame wrapped around your body. You don't have airbags deploying in a split second. And so you really have to do everything you can to ride defensively and safely. So I'd say those are really good tips. Those are good starting tips. Get to know your bike for sure. Be clean and sober. Ride safe. Ride defensively. Know your roads. That's a good one. I can't tell you how many times I've avoided massive potholes because I just knew where they were. I know where some of these really big potholes are. And isn't that crazy? Potholes here in Hawaii, they don't get fixed, and I actually learned the roads and I learned where they are. I mean, they will eventually get fixed. If someone spray paints a Bodo around them, they'll get fixed eventually. But you definitely, like, it's not like they're gonna get fixed that day, that week, or that month. So knowing your roads. Oh, here's a really big one. This is something my dad taught me, so it's worthwhile sharing with you. if you want to be safe, either in a car, but especially on a motorcycle, you want to be predictable. That means you don't want to do something that's unnatural or unexpected, like randomly slam on the brakes. And you know, it's hard because here in Hawaii, when you drive and you ride with Aloha, you want to do stuff like let people go or slow down to let people. I have a video about this in Waimanalo. Everyone will stop to let you go. But it's dangerous on a bike because there's so many distracted drivers. You know, you slow down to let someone go and you wave them on, and next thing you know, you get rear-ended. Just because you were trying to show some aloha and drive responsibly and respectfully and stuff. So I actually don't really slow down to let people go very often. I'll keep with the flow of traffic, not because I'm like that or because I'm in a rush, but because I want to be predictable. And I know there's so many distracted drivers, the odds of someone being behind me not paying attention is high. And so be predictable. That's a huge one. And I find myself, especially if you DoorDash, it's really easy to like, oh, you pass the address and you slam on the brakes. That's the last thing you want to do. Just blow past it. It's all good. You can do a U-turn where it's legal, turn around, and just, you're good. You don't want to just like slam on the brakes and boom. It's the last thing you want. Nobody wants that. The driver behind you doesn't want to hit you, and you don't want to be hit. I think those are some good tips. There's probably some more. Look, guys, if you're watching this video and there's anything that you can think of that can help riders, either new riders or even people that have been riding for a long time, let me know. I'm sure I missed a bunch. I just kind of winged this off the cuff. I was thinking a lot about those families. And again, my prayers to the Ohana. It's so sad. It's so sad. Also, there was a kid who they interviewed on the news who said he didn't have a helmet because he couldn't afford it. That's not an excuse. There's always a way to get protection. There's going to be places that you can go to get free helmets. Shoot, if that kid reaches out, maybe I should reach out to that kid. I'll buy him a helmet. You know, and he can pay it forward one day, but I think he was just saying that. I think that's a good excuse. Oh, I can't afford a helmet. Well, if you can't afford a helmet, what are you doing on this, like, you know, $3,000 e-bike? It doesn't make any sense. Make it make sense. All right, guys, if you're out there, ride safe. Make it home in one piece, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Aloha.